Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. My name's Dan and I'm ready for Daily Art Adventure number 597, which I am calling Expressive Line or Expressive Drawing. I was going to do this all by myself without your company, but I got a little ways into it, said, nah, why do this alone when I can have your spectacular company? So here we go. Let me back up so you can see the painting. Again, you go back and watch me do this yesterday and the day before, and then last week one day I believe it was. So I'm all done with many layers of acrylics. And then I've done oil glaze over the whole thing, then some details, dark details in oil, and then the fuzz layer, real messy, soft edged, translucent stuff. So most of the light areas on the painting is the fuzz layer, you see, but you can see through it still, it's translucent. All right, and then what I'm going to do now is pencil drawing. Very unconventional. A proper response, if you're an artist, at this point would be, what? You don't do pencils on top of oil paintings. That would be a perfectly sensible response to what I just said. Because, no, traditionally, absolutely, you do not do pencil. Now, what kind of pencil in it? We talk about this all the time. It's a wax-based called Jumbo Jet Black, made by Jerry's Autorama. Not as greasy as a grease pencil, but a little greasier than a Conte crayon. Just for you art majors who know what a Conte crayon is. Whoops, I'm off camera there. Sorry about that. So, I want to talk about the art of, now I use the word expressive line or expressive drawing. I just have one hesitation for using that word expressive, because it sounds like I am subscribing to or agreeing with the notion that art is about self-expression. That concept is so utterly ubiquitous in our current Western civilization culture that it would be considered an unassailable truth by many ignorant people. It has been a truism for the last 100 years or so that art is about self-expression. But I do most vociferously deny, reject, repudiate that art is about self-expression. In fact, as you can maybe tell, I feel rather strongly about that subject. Art that devolves into expression, in my opinion, falls off the shelf completely. Art that is focused on self-expression, in my book, is not even art anymore. It is, in fact, self-expression. It should be called for what it is. Anyway, I don't want to get that deeply into the philosophy of it. I don't want to stay practical, but since I've that far, here's my definition of art. I've given it many times. I'll give it to you again, just since I've gotten myself this deep already. Are you ready? My Dan Nelson's definition of art. Take a deep breath. It's heavy, it's deep, it's long, it's complicated. All that is sarcasm. I feel like it's legal to be sarcastic if you tell your audience that you're being sarcastic. Otherwise, sarcasm is completely verboten in mature company. Anyway, here's my definition of art. Art is stuff, so it has to have a plastiche. It has to have a stuffness about it. It's not just in your head. So there I departed with many, many in the 20th century already. Just with that one assertion, art is stuff. It is not cerebral. It is physical. It exists in a real reality, not simply in a cerebral or mental or spiritual or metaphysical space. Art is stuff that's made. So once again, I have parted company now with many others in the 20th century. Like, well, the grand Pied Piper of all real modern art, Marcel Duchamp, you know, the most famous stunt meister of the modern art world, who brought a urinal, or as they say in England, urinal. They think they know how to pronounce all these words because they made them up. And all us Yanks and Canucks on this side of the pond go, no, you didn't, it's urinal. Anyway, because I assert that art is something that human beings made. So elephants, monkeys, dolphins do not count. Spiders, birds, bowery birds, birds of paradise. Nope, 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 nope. None of that is art. Even, God bless your little religious heart, even God is not an artist in my book. He is a creator, perhaps. You know what I mean? I'm only saying that because I don't want, that's not the debate I want to get into at this moment. But no, human beings are artists. Now now I've lost all the Helen Steiner Reisers. That is a cruel insider joke for those of you who like Hallmark cards. All you sentimental saps. I don't call God an artist. He's a creator. It goes way beyond art. Anyway, I'm getting myself in deeper and deeper. I haven't even gotten back to drawing yet. I'm just trying to define art is stuff that's made to look at. There you go. Now, most of the 20th century and contemporary modern art, what ordinary people call modern art, okay, and you art historian weirdos, I'm not drawing a line here between contemporary art and modern art. I'm just using the word the way ordinary folks use the word. Most modern artists assert that their art is not stuff to make. It's not stuff that's made to look at. It's stuff that's made to think about, or stuff that's made to make you think. Or, to put it much more simply, benignly, art is communication. Once again, in my ornery, irascible, but with a significant personal vocabulary, my opinion is that if it's communication, it's no longer art. It is communication. If art is communication, it's no longer art, it's communication. And so I don't consider much of the 20th century crap to be art. It is, in fact, just what it looks like when you go to the museum, what it assails you, it assaults you as preacherly propaganda, because that's precisely what it is. And again, so please understand, I am knowingly, completely, not only out of step, but militantly against most of what is taught in most of the universities in most of the Western world. Now, just so happens I'm correct, and if the planet lasts long enough, humanity will come to agree with me that sophomoric, overbearing, propagandistic, preachy stuff that they called art in the 20th century was in fact not art. It was a bunch of propagandistic crap. Okay, so that's what I think about that. Anyway, so for not wanting to get deep, doggone it, in here, I'm not even on the screen half the time. I'm sorry, you guys. Anyway. It's my channel, and I'll cry if I want to. You, You would cry too if it happened to you. Do, 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 do. And I haven't even talked a lick about expressive drawing. I've been doing it, but I haven't talked about it. Oh man. Okay, what is expressive drawing? Well, for one thing, let me sit down and am I on? No, let me move again. So you can tell by the manner in which I move that my number one concern at this point is not an accurate, careful, precise rendition of anything. If it were, I'd be holding my pencil like this. I'd stick out my tongue and do what I call tongue drawing. I would certainly not be using my wrong hand. And you can tell just by the way that I'm moving that again, that my primary concern is not similitude, rectitude, accuracy, specificity, and so forth. So what is it? Well, it's the best word I have for it, as I use all the time, is interesting marks. The essence of good drawing is making interesting marks. You can't make interesting marks with ugly movements. So some of the words that you could conceivably use to describe my movements here are free, spontaneous, fluid, flowing, fast. Ooh, they all start with the letter F. Not stultified, stiff, hesitant, insecure, choppy, stop and starty. Those would all be bad descriptors. Instead, my lines are very approximate, free, loose, spontaneous, roughly, what's the word I'm looking for? Next to, close to, approximating, roughly approximating similitude, or the object that I'm drawing, but only very roughly. All right, so I have a piece of paper here. Let me take a minute to, just for fun, let's talk about human beings can't draw straight lines. Okay, if you're human, here, H, human, equals no straight line, SL, straight line. Human beings cannot draw straight lines without a ruler. So the only kind of human lines a human can make is crooked line, CL, crooked line. Now, under crooked lines, we can make two kinds of crooked lines. We can make happy ones and unhappy ones. Or we can make attractive, interesting, magnetic, drawing, as draw you in lines, and we can make repulsive, ugly, negative marks that leave the viewer cold, unhappy, and so forth. In my book, we do not want to make these. Now, okay, never mind. I could take a philosophical detour and talk about that, but I won't. I'm in the business of beauty. I'll just say that. So I only want to make interesting marks. So how do you make pleasant, so crooked lines, happy crooked lines? How do you do it? The answer is, don't try to draw a straight line. Let's say I've got a telephone pole in this painting somewhere, and it's a straight telephone pole, of course, has not been hit by a car. So it's like that. It's straight. That line is barely interesting at best. But if I were to instead draw a line something like that, it still gives the impression of straightness, because the overall average is straight. Your brain turns that into a straight line, but it is most certainly not a straight line. And this is much more interesting to look at than this, generally speaking. Generally speaking, okay? A horizontal line. Well, I don't know if that's a good one or a bad one. Let's do a bad one. There's a bad one. Here's a good one. Now, there's many different ways to do a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. That is not a good one. This, with this line, it looks as though the drawer or the artist tried to draw a straight line and failed. And that gives the viewer a decidedly negative feeling, because it looks like the artist, me, tried to do a straight line, which I did, and I failed. That gives you an awkward, negative feeling. But with these, this same thing here. But with these and this, it looks like the artist intentionally made a crooked line that gives the impression of a straight line, and that gives you a happy feeling. Okay. Woo! So that's what you're looking at here in all of this. Now, at the end of this stage, I'm done drawing really here. I might add a little bit more, just noise, just pure noise. That's all it is. At the end of this stage, my painting is a little too liney. It's a little too draw-y. It's got too much pencil in it. But as I like to say, witness my distress. There isn't any, because I have still ahead of me, in fact, the most important step of the entire painting process, which is final edit. I'm going to do something I don't do very often, just since you're still watching, and I'm going to end this broadcast soon. I just dipped the tip of this rag in turpenoid, Gamsol, I believe that is actually. And I'm not erasing these, what did I call them a while ago? Chaos lines. That's not what I called them, just texture. But I am diminishing them. That's enough. Enough of that. They're still there, but they're pushed back, and I like them. So in the final edit, which I'm going to end this broadcast here. I'm going to paint by myself for a while, then bring you back in a while. I'll cover up many of these pencil lines. How many? That'll be my job to decide. You know, as I'm painting right here, I'll decide how many of those lines to cover up. So let me give you a projection of where I'm going then. I have the slowest, longest stage, phase, layer of the painting process, which is final edit layer. Now the good news is the painting is almost finished as it is. So I don't need to do a lot on the final edit. You know, only maybe this much of the canvas will have opaque paint on it. That much, 10%. It's a very important 10%. Anyway, and then after that's done, I do broken color, and then day after that's dry, I do glazes and touch up. Okay? But that's all. That was a short broadcast about expressive drawing in which I went off the deep end into philosophy. Way deeper than I expected to. And there you go. So now I'm going to do final edit for a while, and I'll bring you guys back in a little while. Okay, thanks. Oh, bunch of chats. Hang on, you guys have been just knocking all over the place. Let's see what Nicholas Bravo. Hello, good to see old timers here. And GeoGamer, you're a new person. GeoGamer7, you drew cool. Thank you very much. He says, I draw cool. Thank you for that correction. Art Surgeon. Hey, Dan, what's your liquid to oil ratio in your glazes? Oh, great question. Great question. For you newcomers, perhaps, liquid, which in the glaze layer, it's probably 10 to 1, I would guess. I have a pile. Let me show you my palette just for a second. So there's my palette. There's my pile of liquid, and I did most of the glazing with these brushes, 2 of them. I would get them quite soaking wet in liquid, which is a gel. So, to use the term wet is kind of a, take it for what it's worth. Load it up with gel, and then would dip just a few bristles into a color and go with that. So probably even less than 10 to 1. Very good question. Let's see if I remember to move you guys back up now. David, thank you. That curved roof. Thank you, David. I did fix it. I did. You could tell partly because of your comments. I wanted to make sure See, anyway, thank you very much. I got that break, and I hope that fixes it. And David has another question. Is the street light white or pinkish orange or beige? Oh, that's a good question. In reality, these street lights, where's my photograph? These street lights, I think they're that orange. I forget what that is. Mercury vapor? I think that's white. But I disregard that in a painting. I'll do them warm white. Here is, though, a related. David asked what color are the street lights, and that brings up a point. Every artist knows, of course, colors change with distance. They get cooler, and of course, they get more diffuse. But that rule, I think, does not apply to luminous bodies like light bulbs, like in this case, street lights. If the street light is a given color here, the color is not going to shift down the street. It's not going to get cooler. Like, you know, a bright light in front of the barn is a certain color. Take that same kind of light and put it on a mountain 5 miles away, but it's a real bright light, same color. You get it? The mountain turns blue, but the light itself, just an interesting. And I've really tested that observation very intensely when I'm on location, standing in a city street. The street lights are the same color all the way down. But I think, David, I'm going to do mine probably just warm white because it's the most intuitively correct. And Marita Gaines agrees with my thoughts on modern art. Thank you. All the people that disagreed with me, they hung up in disgust. They went to some other video. And my Russian friend, thanks for your art. Glad to see. Thank you very much. Thank you. Erlinda, always would like to see all 3 versions of this. Okay. Well, I'm doing 2. Like to see both, right? And Erlinda, the subtle and not so subtle differences are very interesting. I'd like to know your thoughts on the changes. Run that by me again, Erlinda. I didn't quite catch that, so I do want to know what question you're asking. The subtle and not so subtle differences are very interesting. Flesh that question. If you're still listening, flesh that out, and I'll be glad to answer it in a bit. Yeah, Foxhole Willie, I'm hanging up on you, buddy. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. And as I said, I'm going to really need to make some tracks on this painting, get some stuff done quickly. So I'm going to do it without your company for a while and then probably bring you in for another broadcast later, although that remains to be seen. It's a short day today, short work day. All right, but I love your company. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, and Erlinda does specify right here the digital versions too. Okay, yes, indeed. I will post those. When I finish the paintings, I absolutely put them on YouTube Community, right? Click on my picture in YouTube, and it takes you to my channel. And I think third button over is called Community. That's where I post still images of my finished paintings. Thanks, guys. The changes I made intentionally. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Can I point those out? Nope. Later. Thanks, Linda. I'll try to catch you up next time around.